Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about 5 albums that I'm still looking for. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist we put together every week, and also the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So when I talk about albums that I'm still looking for, yeah, of course there's like huge white whales out there. I'd love to have like an RL pressing of Led Zeppelin 2, a Beatles Butcher cover, a 1A, 1B first pressing of The Dark Side of the Moon. I'd love to have like big things like that. I know I'll never come across those. So really what I'm looking for with this list are albums that are obtainable, but so far I haven't been able to track down a copy that's available for a decent price. And I've been lucky over the years. Most of the stuff I've wanted, I've been able to track down. But there are a couple of albums that, I'll either come across and they're just way too expensive, or I just never see them. And, I missed out when they went up for sale and, have never been able to track down a copy of them. But I've done a couple of these videos previously. And for the most part, within the next year or so after I post the video, I tend to kind of track down most of the albums on this list. So hopefully of these 5, I'll be able to get some of these over the next year or two, because I've been looking for a couple of these. I've been looking for 5 or 6 years at least. The big one for me is an EP that was released back in 2012 and was never available on vinyl until 2020. And it's by one of my favorite bands of all time, Blink-182. The EP is called Dogs Eating Dogs. This was released after they released Neighborhoods, and this is before Tom left the band for the second time. And when this went up for pre-sale back in 2020, I was working midnights at the time. And I slept through the announcement of the EP. I woke up, saw the announcement, got on their website probably about an hour after they went live. It was released in three different colors. There was a red version, a white version, and then there's a black and white kind of smush version that were available. I got on there, like I said, probably about an hour after the sale went up, and all 3 versions were completely sold out. All 3 versions were pretty limited. The white version and the red version each got pressed. There was 1,000 copies pressed of each one of those. And then the white and black mixed version, there was only 500 of those that were pressed. So only 2,500 copies, which, you would think maybe wouldn't be that hard to come by. We see our, record store day pressings that are, 2,500, 3,000 copies that, aren't super hard to grab, but they can be. But this thing sold out almost instantaneously, and ever since then has been going for a lot of money on Discogs and on eBay. They weren't all that expensive when they were first released, but on Discogs right afterwards, right after the sale, once it was all sold out, you could go on Discogs, and they were ranging from, I'd say, about $120 to $160. And I could have bought a copy at that range, but it was hard for me to pay that kind of money for a $40 EP that, I think there's only 5 tracks on it. As much as I love Blink, it's the only thing of theirs I don't have on vinyl. But it was really kind of hard for me to pay that kind of money. So kind of flash forward, 2 years or 3 years now, and it easily goes for $300 to $350 online. And now I kind of, in retrospect, I kind of look back and think, man, I was kind of a fool for not grabbing it when I could have got it for half of what it's going for now. Another album that I would absolutely love to have, I've actually held a copy of it in my hands and considered buying it, even though it was way too much money that I wanted to spend for an album, is 4 by Blues Traveler. It's Blues Traveler is one of those bands I'm kind of up and down on their albums. 4 is far and away my favorite album of theirs. It's probably one of my top 25 or 30 albums of the 90s. I've loved it since it was first released. It's just a great album. But, it's been really hard to track down on vinyl. I know there's a pressing, a reissue that was done in 2014. I think there was only like 250, maybe 300 copies of it that were pressed in that run of it. And then there was a couple of variants that came out for the anniversary edition, the 20th anniversary in 2015. but a lot of them were pretty low, limited releases. I know there was one or two that were like, one was I think 500 copies that were pressed, another one was like 750 copies, and then there was another version that was a little bit more wider or widely released, but I still want to say it was only maybe 1,000 copies of that was available. So super limited run, super limited availability for those albums, and there for a while. It was right around the $200 mark if you went on to Discogs or on eBay, and this ballooned to anywhere from between $350 to $500 that I've seen that album go for. And then a couple years ago, one of my local record stores had a used copy of it in their store, but they wanted a lot for it. I want to say it was like $350. A beautiful pressing. It was one of the splatter versions of it, so it was one of the limited edition 2015 releases. But man, I want to say it's somewhere between $300 and $350 that they wanted for it. But that's just a lot of money for me to drop on an album. As much as I love that album, I decided to kind of hold off. Hopefully, what I'm kind of hoping that they'll do eventually, I'd love to see them do like a super deluxe version of 4. I think it'd be a great album for that. They could package it with some live material from the 90s, maybe some demos and things like that. I think it's a great release that they could do something really special with. So I'm kind of holding off, and hopefully they'll do something like that in the future. There's a really great late 90s alternative rock album called Nasty Little Thoughts by the band Stroke 9 that I would love to have on vinyl. It was first released back in 1999. It was never available on vinyl. There was a very limited run in 2018 that was put on, I think it was translucent red vinyl that was pressed on. And I know it says limited edition online. I don't really know exactly how many copies they pressed of it. But like I said, it's a super underrated album. One that I think Little Black Backpack was like the big hit that they had off the album. Just a great album. One of those albums where, I guess I kind of completely forgot the album even existed until, within the last couple of years. And I thought, that's never been available on vinyl. Then lo and behold, I look and they actually had a pressing of it a couple of years before that. But I was really surprised to see that this thing's selling for almost $200 on Discogs. It goes up for sale very, very rarely on Discogs, but it's somewhere between $150 and $200 when I see it. But it's an album I really do love, and it's a really good album from beginning to end. But the thing is, it's not an album that I'm going to spend really, honestly, more than probably $75 or $85 on. Even though I do like it, I've got it on CD. I can listen to the CD. I guess that's kind of the true with any of the albums I've got on my list. But it's one of those albums I'd love to see a repress of it, just because it's just a really good, fun album. Another great late 90s album that I'd love to have on vinyl is Why Do They Rock So Hard by Real Big Fish. It's probably one of my favorite ska albums of that late 90s period. They had some popularity with the album that came out before that, which was Turn the Radio Off. I think they had a hit in the movie Basketball. And but this album kind of went, I think, a little under the radar. I love this album. I think it's hands down a better album overall than Turn the Radio Off. I do love that album also. But I'd love to have this one on vinyl. It was never been available. It was only pressed on vinyl in 2018. Another super limited run like everything else on the list here, everything else I've talked about at least so far. It was a super limited run. It was only available through their website. They've casually kind of restocked it without any kind of announcement twice since 2018. Both times I missed out on them, haven't been able to get it. This thing routinely goes for $300 to $400 on Discogs and eBay, which, along with these other albums on my list, it's just too much money for me to drop on a single album. I really hope that they would do a repress of it this year for its 25th anniversary. They kind of secretly did a repress of Turn the Radio Off. I think it was last year or the year before they did a repress, anniversary repress of that. So I'm still hoping that I'll be able to get a copy of it. Hopefully they'll do a reissue this year of that great album. The next one is an album that was first released back in 1982. Has never been reissued since then, even though I'm really surprised it hasn't been reissued. An album that I would love to have on vinyl is Speak of the Devil by Ozzy Osbourne. This was an album that they were originally going to record with, I think what the plan was to record it in Toronto. This was the tour after Bark at the Moon was released. But unfortunately, Randy Rhoads died in a plane crash, so some of their plans kind of got mixed up. They ended up bringing in Brad Gillis, who played guitar. They did the set. It's all live Black Sabbath tracks that Ozzy does. It's a great album. It's one of my favorite live albums of all time. And I'm really surprised, actually, that it was not part of the Ozzy Osbourne box set that came out a few years ago. They did some live stuff that was included in there. I don't know if there was some like contractual obligations or some kind of rights thing that made him not be able to include it in that box set, or they just wanted to keep all the Black Sabbath stuff separate from Ozzy. But it's a great live album. It's one that really needs to be repressed. It's one that, you know, it is one that a lot of people out there would love to have. I actually bought a copy of it a few years back for a friend. I got a really good deal on it. It was a beautiful pressing of it. He was a huge Ozzy fan. I bought it for him, thinking that, hey, I'd be able to find another copy eventually, and that's literally the last copy of it I've seen out in the wild. Of all the albums on this list, this is by far the most obtainable. Last time I looked on Discogs, it's going for, you know, somewhere between $65 and $85 for a really good, nice copy of it, which, you know, like I said, out of everything else on here, it's definitely the most cheapest. Hopefully it's one that I'll have in my collection sooner rather than later, but I'd love to see them do some kind of anniversary pressing or some kind of special release for this package or for this album, because I think they could do something really cool with the packaging and do a really nice release for it. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what albums you're still looking for. This is something I probably could have went on and on and on about. I got probably a good couple of hundred albums on my Discogs want list, but this is just 5 that, like I said, aren't like some super crazy thing that I know it's going to be really hard to track down, like a Beatles Butcher cover, which goes for a couple of grand if you ever find one of those. These are all things that are obtainable, things I can track down, but they just go for a lot more money right now than I'm willing to pay for a record. But let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.